Peace I bequeath to you, my own peace I give you. You may remember that this is the greeting that he gives when he appears immediately after his victory. Shalom Alechem, peace unto you. And already in his teaching he has indicated that the way to greet a place that they go to is to wish peace upon it. And if the Son of Peace, if a Son of Peace is there, their peace, as though it were something real, not just an idea, will descend upon that man or that place, and if not, that peace would return to them. We are called, therefore, wherever we are, to be bearers of peace. It's a program, if we take it seriously, which can stamp not only our soul, but also our comportment and our very day concretely. The way that we interact. Is it peace? Blessed Paul VI was the one who, years ago, set apart the first day of the year as a World Day of Prayer for Peace, wanting all Christians everywhere to share that prayer so as to make it more powerful. And he has, in one of his early meditations on that theme, because he would publish one worldwide for every World Day of Peace, has this interesting comment. Peace, he says, is great. Peace is wonderful. Peace is the object of much search and much devotion. It is very difficult, extremely difficult, but not impossible. You may recall that in a break in the celebration of the Second Vatican Council, it was around 1964, possibly earlier. It was the end of a year, beginning of another year, when therefore there was a slight break in the session, and he chose to place all under the powerful patronage of the Holy Family by going to Nazareth. And he made a wonderful meditation on silence when there. He indicated how Nazareth was a school. He looked at the way that Joseph worked as a contemplative. That applies to us all, whatever our work. In the monastic life, one would always see St. Joseph around, especially in working areas, for he's the model for those who work in peace, sanctifying their work both by making it an occasion for prayer, by not opening the mouth, but living in contact with Jesus in the heart, but also by the intention that all may be offered, which, as it happens, we've heard a lot about recently through Fatima. That was one of the great messages given to humanity through the children, the importance of offering up the pain that's there, but also even inventing it by mortification, for this can save souls. And she showed the children what saving souls meant, what they were to save them from. Therefore it's important that we think twice before losing the merit in complaining. For if we accept well the inbuilt penance of pain coming without our choice, there is far more there potentially present with regard to merit than inventing penances of our own thinking that might actually be observed and noticed and therefore be glorious for us. So we gain in this world our reward. With regard to peace itself, it's something that one can study in those that we meet. It's not easily fabricated. What is there inside, bit by bit, works itself out. There's an old saying in French, chasser le naturel, chase away the natural. Il revient au galop, and it comes back at a gallop. We can only put up an act up to a certain point. The truth will out. And therefore, if there is a profound relationship with the one who is eternal and unhurried and unchanging and unruffled peace there, if we're always in communion with him, there cannot but be, in the depth, a fountain of peace at every other level. Years ago, I remember in one of the classes that the novice master gave us in France, he indicated how all the levels of the being are intertwined and interlinked, and how the deepest level impact on all the others. So that if at the deepest level there is a union and a bonding between the soul at its deepest level now and its king and maker, the level of the will, what he referred to as the fine point of the soul, la fine pointe de l'âme, then he indicated how that would have its repercussions on every single level of the being, including even the physique. A peaceful face, a peaceful regard, a peaceful mode of speaking. The person who is not peaceful with himself, in the end, will betray that in unpeaceful comportment with all around, sooner or later. And it's also something that comes back. What goes round comes round. Why? Bit by bit, people know that we are a peaceful presence, and they will happily bathe in our company. They will not bathe easily in the company who's going to create pain for them. They will shy away from that encounter if they possibly can. But people will drift towards a soul who will refresh another soul and give that soul an injection of warmth, joy and wantedness, and will not be complicated. I remember that commentary coming one time years ago in student days. A girl who was doing religious studies mentioned this. She wants to become a nun. She was comparing how being with one person compared with being with another person complicated also oneself. If one came into the presence of a simple soul rather than a complicated soul, one's own being was not carrying more clutter. And it's true. We are influenced by a process of osmosis by unpeaceful and therefore complicated souls, by overexposure to them over a long period. Think what that means when it comes to a life choice of partner or a choice of community. The person who is not in harmony with the will that made him, therefore the profound level, that fine point of the soul, is not in touch, but actually disorientated and against, then at the deepest level there is not peace. That soul is not wedded to the will that wills the world and rules it, including himself. Therefore, at the deepest level there is a dysfunctionality which is bound to outwork itself in unpeace. But as the person who is, for a long period of life, for the whole of life if possible, always in grace, always under the authority of the king, is more likely, even when outwardly there is an unpeaceful situation, to be deep down able to handle it. Pain, a sentence of death, the big C, tragedy. That person whose will is wedded to the will that rules the world and wants our good is more likely not to be ruffled. It can feel and know more than the immediate, the divine vision of events, providence, forevision. God has seen it way before we did. When a soul returns from, especially nowadays, many years of unpeaceful company and behaviour, it's carrying a lot of baggage. Nowadays, even people who officially are practicing their faith are being contaminated every day, whether it's by unpeaceful messages coming from a screen, or simply by too many messages coming at all through all the modern means of communication, too many words to handle, taking away peace, or by directly contaminated practices which open the soul deliberately to forces whose nature are not fully appreciated. When one takes away faith, correct faith, one increases credibility and credulity. One believes anything, and therefore they think that healing energy is all good, that spirits, that angels are all good. Well, I've got news for them, they're not. I think you know what I mean. And people are carrying bad energies, bad exposure, bad radiation, bad company, even in themselves. All baggage they don't need, which is very unpeaceful. This testimony is interesting. It's a bishop who's giving it. I just quote it. Another night, Nonette Silla was in the chapel praying from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., the hour before mine. Monsignor Josefino S. Ramirez. 3 weeks before, she had lifted up to the heart of Jesus a man she knew who was destroying the moral life of many of her girlfriends. Her prayers included this man because she knew Jesus loved him too. Her prayer ended with an exclamation point that she wanted Jesus to bring him to the chapel so that she would know for sure he was converted. 3 weeks later, while she was in prayer at the chapel, she heard someone sobbing in the back. She turned around and it was he. He explained that for 3 weeks his mind had been confused. What he thought was right now looked like it was wrong. That is, he's adjusting his whole mental pole. He could not sleep. That night he began to drive around the city. He lived in Makati. When he passed the church of San Miguel, he saw a light on in the chapel. That light was inviting, welcoming. He decided to stop and come in. What he met was no condemnation for his sins. Instead, he experienced tender mercy from the Blessed Sacrament. That is why he wept. When I came at 3 a.m., he told me his story. I heard his confession, gave him absolution, and he has been a daily communicant ever since. These are dramatic cases, but they're peaceful cases. Peace refound, paradise regained. On this day we're feasting St. Brendan. He is a good example of the early saints who retrieved the Adamic peace, the Edenic peace of paradise. The Celtic Saints have something in common with those of the East, in that the monastic life was very radical and therefore simple. God alone. And they also have things in common with the East in some of the results. It is told that in one of these voyages, it could have been Brendan, it could have been one of the others, they were wanting to celebrate the sacred mysteries one day. It could have been Easter Day or something, and they were at sea, and the boat was just rocking too much for it to be safe to do so on board. They prayed, and they saw out of nowhere appearing an island. So they took it as an answer to prayer. They disembarked and simply but profoundly celebrated Easter on this island. They got back into the boat and carried on their voyage. What was their surprise when from the middle of the island appeared a great fountain of water, and then the island went back under. They had celebrated on a whale. In the East, there are many stories of that peace found with the wild animals. There was the case of a lion who was in trouble, and he had a big thorn in his paw, and this good monk, I believe, helped him and took out the little thorn, and the lion recognized his goodness and didn't molest him. And I believe the story doesn't end there, because eventually he was thrown to the lions. They were still under persecution, and the very lion that he'd helped recognized him and came up and licked him. And I've heard from even children how there's a great rapport between them and the animals that they might have. I was talking the other day to a little child, and she was very much into animals, and she knew how they functioned, and she had a great relationship with them. And dogs, in particular, really pick things up. Really. So this is the peace that God wills in creation, and peace is where He's happy to be. He wants us to avoid arguments. There are ways and means between mature souls of not arguing. And it's worth it, because life is not that long. And if we go from argument to argument, we've wasted the gift of the peace of the resurrection.